I'm going to demonstrate exporting from Smap to things at or Neo4J. The survey I created in Smap to export collects data on pits and faults associated with those pits. So it asks what the pit ID is, the pit type, and then there's a repeating group which gets all the faults associated with the pit. Now, I've already collected some data on this. So Neil and Joe have gone out and they've collected information on faults on pits. So let me just export that to Neo4j. Click the export button, select our survey pits, and the output format will be things at, and select the form we want to export, which includes the faults. It tells me I have to create a model. So this will represent the nodes and relations in Neo4j, so you map the relational data from Smap into those nodes and relations. Click Edit Survey Model, add. Let's add a node. First node we'll add is the field worker who did the inspection. Let's type node, and we'll identify this field worker with the user ID that's collected with each Smap survey. And we'll say that this user ID has to create a unique node inside Neo4j. Save. Now let's add another node, this time for the pit. And we'll identify this with the pit identifier, and we'll say that's also unique. And we'll also record with the pit type. Save. And I'll add a third node, which will be the fault. And this will be have the fault type. And we'll say that's got to be unique. So it'll only create one node in Neo4j for each type of fault. So hit save. I better add some relations. So we'll add. Let's create a inspected by relation, which is from the field worker to the pit, and save. And I'm going to add a has fault relation, which is from the pit to the fault. I won't add any properties on these relations. Click save. Alright, I think we're ready to export now to Neo4j, so I'll save our model and click export. Now it creates a zip file with all the data you need to import into Neo4j, but it also imports it automatically into your local Neo4j graph database. So let's click here. Let's find all the nodes and also their relationships. So I'm just running a bit of cipher query to return everything basically. And here we are, here's the data that was in Smap, and it's been exported to Neo4j. So you can see that the field worker Neil has inspected two pits, 123 and 124. Pit 124 has a fault of location, pit 123 also has a fault of location and a fault of obstruction. Joe has inspected 3 pits, and so on. Okay, the actual model you get inside Neo4j depends upon the model you create in Smap when you do the export. So I'll go back into export and I edit this model. I could, one thing I can do is I can change the fault to be not to be unique, so it'll create a new node for every single fault found, not for each type of fault. That's one change I'll make. I'm also going to add a relation between the field worker and the fault, so it's found by relation. Let's go from field worker to fault and save. Alright, so I'll just export this, but before I do that, because I've changed the model, I'll delete everything inside Neo4j. So let's just go and delete all our nodes and relations. And now I shall do the export. save our model, export, and go back into Neo4J and have a look again at all our nodes. And here now you can see it's a little bit different. You can see there's a fault node being created for each instance of the fault, and we also have the found by relationship between the field worker and the fault. You only have to delete the graph database if you change the model. If we just go and add more data, then that's not necessary. So let's go back into Smap and we'll run another inspection using web forms. Let's create a new identifier for this pit, say it's 888, pit type of 6, and let's have a couple of faults on here. Let's say it's been buried, and by default it's in the wrong location as well, and submit. And I'm actually doing this as Joe. So if I go back to Smap and analyze and do export, select my survey pits, select the output format things at, and export. So let's go and see now what the model in Neo4J. Okay, so now you can see that Joe's done another inspection of pit 888 and it's got two faults, location and obstruction.